Hi there, my name is Amanda, and today we're going to be reviewing ways to incorporate yoga props into your practice. I'll be showing you a series of ways to practice without a prop, with a traditional prop, the block, and with another prop that you may have discovered, the yoga triangle. We're going to be going over 3 to 5 simple pose breakdowns, and I hope that you find this to be very, very helpful on your journey through your yoga practice. So first, we'll be starting with supported Firelog pose. So Firelog pose is a fairly deep hip opening variation. So we'll get started. To come into Firelog pose, you want to come into a comfortable seated position and determine what leg is going to come in front of you first. Bring your other leg across that leg, resting the ankle at or near the knee, and then pressing that knee down toward the other leg. This is a deep hip opener. It requires quite a bit of range of motion in the hips. If this is challenging for you, or like most people, you're going to be more in this space because hips are tight. You can bring your fingertips to behind you and you can push yourself forward to hinge the hips further forward. Now let's try this with traditional yoga blocks. So we'll do the other side. Thank you, sir. Come here. Here you go. So I'm going to switch sides so I'm not just practicing on one side. So I'll bring my other leg to in front of me. Cross the other leg over and bring the knee toward the ankle. To incorporate props into this variation, you can slide a block underneath the knee, which gives you greater leverage to press the knee down. It also provides stability for the knee and gives you a little more room to press the opposite knee down. Another option for you here is to slide your second block between your shins to create a connection, which allows you to press these muscles together, which turns on the external muscles, which release the internal muscles. And the same thing goes for this variation if you like. Especially if your hips are really tight, you can lean back into your fingertips and push yourself forward. This brings us to the third variation on how to use props in supported Firelog pose. With the yoga triangles, you can see the space between the knee and the ankle is actually shaped like a triangle, so you slide the triangle in there, fits nicely. Same thing here, slide the triangle in the gap, it fits nicely. Makes it very easy for you to press the legs toward you and open up the hips and the small part of the back. Same thing here, if the hips are really tight, you can take your fingers behind you, press the knees forward, and feel the same release. So 3 ways to incorporate props with blocks, and with triangles for supported Firelog pose. All right. Another lovely variation that you can try specifically for the hamstrings and the low back is supported wide straddle forward fold or wide straddle forward fold. This pose is pretty challenging if you have tight hamstrings. To come into this pose, you'll just extend the legs. Depending on how tight the hamstrings are, the knees might float away from the floor. That's normal. And then you'll start to extend your fingertips forward. And depending on how flexible you are, you might be able to bring your fingertips further forward, or you might need to brace your legs with your hands. You can also take your fingertips behind you, especially if your small part of your back is really tight or rounded. I'll give you a side view on this so you can get a sense of what this might look like for many people. This is how this pose fits for a lot of people who have tight hamstrings. So again, bringing the fingertips to behind you and tilting yourself forward. can help you get greater stretch in that position. Let's move on into wide straddle forward fold with some blocks. Traditional yoga blocks. Your yoga block has 3 heights: lowest, medium, or highest. And my favorite way to incorporate yoga blocks in particular in this variation is to set them on their second highest height, walk them out in front of me, and rest my elbows or my forearms on them. Second way that you can use the triangles in this variation is you can try to shove them behind your tight knees. If you have really tight knees, this is a nice alternative. Same thing here, walking your hands forward, bracing your legs, or taking your fingertips to behind you. And the last variation, which I think you'll find to be the most comfortable variation, is sliding the triangles with the landmark down underneath the knees, creating a lot of support for behind the knees. And all of the same variations here. You can take your fingertips forward, you can brace your legs, or you can bring your fingertips to behind you. To come out of this, just press your heels down, lift your knees up, and remove your triangles. This is a lovely variation for tight hamstrings and tight low back. We'll keep on exploring ways to incorporate props into your poses. The next pose that we'll be going over is the supported Sphinx pose or Sphinx pose. Sphinx pose is a heart opener or a back bend. It's really good for the low back. If you have low back pain or you have weakness in your thoracic spine, this pose can be a real game changer. So we'll come on to our tummies for Sphinx pose. The Sphinx pose is Cobra's cousin. So you want to set the feet down and bring the elbows to under the shoulders and pull with the hands to lift the chest up and through. If you feel any discomfort in the low back here, you can walk the elbows further out and draw the shoulders further back and down. This is without props. In a variation with props, with blocks, do the same thing here. We can bring blocks to underneath the elbows to prop you up, to make more space across the abdomen. Other variations include bringing the blocks further out and resting the head forward. And then my personal favorite variation for Sphinx pose, incorporating yoga triangles, sliding the triangles to under the chest, extending the arms out, and letting the shoulders relax down and away from the ears. So non-compressive back bend and heart opener. Really, really good for spinal health and low back discomfort. Coming out of this, you can do some counter stretches between any of these movements. This series is meant to be a breakdown and not a sequenced flow. So picking and choosing what you like along the way. I hope you find this to be helpful. Continuing on, we'll move into heart bench or fish pose. Fairly challenging additional heart opener, excellent for bringing lots of oxygen into the body, as well as creating some more of that flexibility in the low back and in particular the thoracic spine. So if you do a lot of this pose is for you. So to come into fish pose, without props, you'll lower down into a supported bridge position. And you'll bring your hands to underneath your glutes and you'll draw your elbows close together. From there, you can extend your legs back and begin to let the back of your head come to the mat. This is supported fish pose. Lots of options for the legs here. Do whatever is most comfortable for you. To come out of this pose, press into your elbows, remove your hands, come back up. How do we translate this into a pose with blocks? Well, we place blocks underneath the shoulders or the small part of the back. This is really personal preference. I'm going to go with a double block stack behind the shoulders and let the head stretch back from here. If this is too high, you can reduce down to a single block. And you can change the height. Whatever height works best for you. This is where knowing your body is going to be pretty important. Toward the end of the day for me, so I'm going to keep it low. Same thing here. Letting the head relax back. This provides nice support for the staples, support for the shoulders. Whew. You know what I was trying to say. All right, last variation. Fish pose or heart bench with yoga triangles. You bring a pair of triangles together. Cool thing about this variation is you can move them down or up depending on what your body is comfortable with or what your body is capable of doing, however you choose to listen to your body. So I'm going to move them up a little higher to right at the base of my shoulder blades and support my head as I come back. And the thing that I really like about this variation is I can feel that more than opening my heart, I can feel the front of my rib cage opening here. I also feel very stable in my glutes. So nice optional variation, different shape prop to incorporate some of the same movements with additional support. This also draws into the conversation around foam rolling and myofascial release that the triangle offers us. And the last variation we'll be going over today, everyone's favorite, pigeon pose. Just kidding, it's not everyone's favorite, but it's a really great pose for opening the hips. So to get in traditional pigeon pose, you can come into a tabletop and then shift up and back in a downward facing dog and pick a leg. Lift that leg up high, draw the knee to your elbow, and set the shin down on the ground. You do not need to bring your shin parallel to the top of the mat. Begin to recline back down toward the ground, bringing your back thigh as close to the mat as possible, coming down onto one elbow and then the other. It's okay if your hips roll one way or the other. Just be mindful if you have a prevalence toward dropping your hips from one side to the other, and do your best to try to find some balance in the center. All right, so pigeon pose. To come out of pigeon pose, you come back into your down dog, and we'll try to incorporate blocks into pigeon pose. I've honestly never done this before, so I think really the only natural block placement that I could think of in this variation is to bring a block to a cross near the front shin and let my belly rest on it. That's really the only block placement I could think of for this variation. I'm sure there are other ways to incorporate blocks in this variation, but this is the one that I would gravitate toward. All right, so let's come out of pigeon pose back into down dog. And let's figure out how to incorporate the triangles into this variation. So you need a triangle near your hands and a triangle near the center of your mat. Pick your leg, lift it up, draw it underneath you. First triangle we want to place between the foot and the thigh. And I'm using my, here, let me show you the other side. This will make more sense. Between the foot and the thigh. So I'm going to take my foot and push the triangle to hold it in place. And the other triangle is going to slide under the thigh, which is a triangle-shaped gap. And I can actually feel my hips squared and balanced here. Squared, right? Even, balanced. So I can come down. And additionally, worth mentioning, second place prize for the fascial release that you get right here over this hip flexor. If you feel like rolling or adding additional pressure into this tissue, go for it. Same thing on both sides. Move your triangles. Shift back into your down dog. And do the other side. So you can see the placement here a little better. Again, my hips are square, even, balanced. And then I can recline forward here. So that's really all I had planned to run through with you this evening. I hope that you found these to be helpful. Again, just touching on ways to incorporate props into your practice, without props, with traditional props, with some of the newer props available to you. I hope that you find this to be helpful. I can't wait to hear your feedback. Feel free to reach out. Let me know if you'd like to know anything more. TheYogaTriangle.com is our website, and we really appreciate you subscribing and following to our YouTube.